Why didn't we see soldiers come out to rescue during the flood in China last month? Rumors say the flood destroyed tanks and equipment near Beijing, incapacitated entire Chinese battalions. Welcome to China Insider, I'm David Zhang. Now, news floating around China has revealed that almost 4 weeks ago when Beijing and surrounding area were flooded, it not only destroyed the livelihood of hundreds of thousands of households, it also incapacitated stationed battalions around Beijing. The intentional flooding of an area called Zhuozhou was deliberately to protect Xi Jinping's face image projects, which include the Daxing International Airport and an economic development area in the flood zone. Now, rumors are circulating online that the Chinese military installations around Zhuozhou and surrounding areas have fallen victim to the CCP's own doing, which is, again, diverting floodwater and destroying a smaller city sacrificed for the bigger ones. And that's why we say that we never saw any videos of soldiers come out to rescue people on camera. It's very strange considering that's usually the first thing that we see. These propaganda videos where soldiers are rescuing people and taking them to safe places or carrying around different things. Now, according to many sources close to Beijing and the CCP, and even in the military, the flood situation was reported to Xi Jinping immediately once the heavy rainfall hit. But Xi Jinping was slow at making a decision, and his second-in-command, Premier Li Qiang, made a split-second decision instead of Xi. And that decision was to create a flood pool in Zhuozhou, and because of the lower elevation, and water would accumulate in there instead of going elsewhere. And that intention, as I said, was to protect the phase projects. So Li Qiang's decision to divert water was simply following Xi Jinping's commands from the past. Except it backfired really badly. So far, we know at least 3 different units have been affected. The first is a unit numbered 66289, and that's located next to the China Labor Relations Institute's Zhuozhou branch campus. Now, the official name is the Tank Brigade of the People's Liberation Army, and it's the unit that defends Beijing against internal threats. And this unit is technically like the Royal Guards of the CCP. Some other sources suggest that Unit 66289 is actually the old number. The new unit number is Unit 66336, and the name is the 112th Brigade of Heavy Combination of the 82nd Group Army. Now, the 112th Brigade is the first digitized unit of the PLA Army, and it's unique and has its own license plate numbers. Xi Jinping, in fact, inspected it in 2018. Now, because of the flooding, all the tanks and motor vehicles got flooded, just like all the cars, and they all broke down. We're talking about, things like tanks and transport vehicles and light armored vehicles. That's fighting power. It's gone, rendered useless. There's also a nearby aviation branch in the area called Shijiazhuang Flying Academy 5th Training Brigade, Unit 93550. Again, because of heavy flooding, the planes and the motor units, the aviation units were also damaged. In particular, these aviation training models were actually damaged beyond repair. I mean, these are expensive. Now, there's also a third unit which is stationed a bit to the south in Baoding City, where it was also affected by the flood. And there's an unconfirmed number of casualties outside of what we know. And the most damaging part of the flood has essentially been that it destroyed a lot of the storage and the units of different sorts of branch based around the area. And so that includes a lot of the military inventories, support and transportation vehicles, and a lot of that is actual combat equipment. Now, according to the sources, Xi was really mad at Li Qiang's quick call and his decision, and this essentially sacrificed the most important aspect of his power, the military, and to try to save his political projects. But this whole thing is very weird because technically he's trying to protect Xi Jinping's assets. Now, according to former investigative reporter Zhang, the 3rd unit stationed in Baoding suffered heavy casualties, to the point where now people in Beijing's government, news media, as well as online, they're quietly circulating this, but also discussing it. The source that Zhao got confirmed many unusual observations. For example, uncharacteristically, there was no state leader to visit the flooded areas, and it was, again, because so many soldiers were drowned that the leaders of the country did not dare to go to the scene of the flood, fearing that the army would actually join forces and protest. And the source also says that a large number of soldiers died and that they were dissatisfied with the military and became even more rebellious, but again, we're not hearing any of this. Now, the exact death count isn't calculated, or actually can't be calculated, again, because of censored information. So now the situation is that nobody in the CCP dares to take responsibility for causing this. The awkward thing is that the decision caused military units to be heavily damaged is one that was made by the second in command. But then again, like I said, because it's following the wishes of the first guy, right, Xi Jinping, can you really blame him for wanting to execute it in the way that what should have been done by Xi? But of course, like I said, Xi Jinping didn't make a decision. And so it was a split-second decision to do it, and it turns out that it backfired. And so you can say that this was a loyalty move gone wrong. Now, another rumor has been circulating at the same time this is happening, which is that the relationship between Xi Jinping and Premier Li Qiang has soured. Not sure if it's because of this one situation or just the fact that the Chinese economy has been doing so bad, and Li Qiang is the one that's supposed to be responsible for the economy. Now, information about the flood, which again, once it leaked, it kind of makes sense given that this is one of the factors that could have caused rift between the two. Now, considering Li Qiang was trying to please Xi, it doesn't mean that Li Qiang is disloyal to Xi. It just means that whatever he was trying to do wasn't working for showing loyalty. Now, Li Qiang is set to replace Xi Jinping at the G20 in India. And of course, this is following the international standard, right? If the president or the prime minister can't make it, he'll send in the vice president or the secretary of state or something of equivalence. But still, Li Qiang going to India isn't some sort of a smooth sailing. It's going to be many countries challenging Xi Jinping's claims. Of course, given the recent new map that China put out, which put claims to many disputed areas with different countries being offended by it. And so you're going to hear a lot of these diplomatic challenges going towards Li Qiang now since Xi Jinping's not going. And this is basically escalated into a situation where Li Qiang has gotten no good news inside or outside of China. And he's the one who's basically being blamed for this or taking the heat. Now, what does this all result in is a clear reflection of the failed way of governance that Xi Jinping's era has created. Everybody calls Xi Jinping the emperor, right? Because the way he's ruling for life like an emperor, but comparing him to, say, Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor in China that ruled the unified China, basically was known for his authoritarian ways of running the imperial court. But even then, Qin Shi Huang daily would read thousands of decisions that he had to approve or deny. And this was a situation where if you are to be in power as one person above all, you have to have the willpower to sustain the constant decision making. But what we're seeing now with the CCP is they've only escalated that authoritarian aspect straight into totalitarianism, right? Ultra-totalitarianism. But the decision-making aspect stayed the same. It was almost like he only wanted to maintain the power, but not the responsibility aspect that comes with it. And he's seeking a lot of the control, Xi Jinping that is, and that control goes down to the community level. He's set up CCP offices, even in the smallest communities. And he's taken all of these essentially extension of control into his grip for power. But as the sole voice of the commanding chain in the Chinese Communist Party, what it's done is create an unachievable backfiring scenario that no other decision can be right, yet every other decision was trying to be right. Now, no one dares to make a move unless Xi Jinping does, but when he doesn't make a move, what is everyone else supposed to do? Just end up not doing anything? They get blamed. If they do something, they get blamed. There's nothing right. Right, for example, Li Qiang, the person that's now being blamed, normally he would have a lot of power, especially being the premier, right? He has none right now. He's basically reporting everything to Xi Jinping first, and then he has to make a decision based on whether or not Xi Jinping would, how he would think he would want this to be done. But in reality, how can you be 100% right all the time? All right, that's it today for the episode on why there weren't any soldiers at the flood last month in Beijing. And if you enjoy the content, leave a like, comment below your thoughts, and subscribe to our channel. All right, I'm David Zhang. This is China Insider. We'll see you next time.